Let me jump in here. I'm overtime. I know it's hard to believe for me. He's the director of research and government of the Government Accountability Institute. He's written a book called Control Oligarchs, Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. It's Seamus Bruner back on the show. Seamus, welcome back in, sir. How are you?
It's great to see you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you for hopping on here. We talked about this last time, but I love that word control oligarchs. We'll get to a couple of topics here at hand. But people need to copy this Control Oligarchs book because we need to understand that what's happening. There's these people, as Bernie Sanders say, oligarchs that really are just wanting to control our lives. And you've written a whole book about it. Let's plug the book right up front, sir.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we follow the money at the Government Accountability Institute. My colleague Peter Schweizer and our team here. That's our motto. Well, we've followed it to the top of the political class: Clinton's, Biden's, all the rest. And so I, followed it a bit further to the elite class, who I call the control oligarchs. These are people like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, many, many others. The combined personal net worth of the characters in this book tops $1 trillion. That's with a T. So larger than the GDPs of many countries. So these guys have obviously a lot of power. Their agenda is for control. They want to control what you eat, what you can drive, even whether you can have a gas-powered stove or not. They want to control the temperature inside your house. There's a crazy story in the book about people, just imagine, Jimmy, waking up in the middle of the night, either freezing cold as it gets closer to winter, or it was in the middle of the summer, drenched in sweat. You go to your thermostat, you try to turn on the HVAC, and you're locked out. It sounds crazy and dystopian. It actually happened to people in Texas and in Colorado. Their so-called smart thermostats were locked by the utility companies during a power surge. So that's the kind of things coming from these people who are hyping climate alarmism. Of course, they want you in an electric vehicle that can be tracked or bricked like a cell phone, and so many other things going on in this book.
It's called Control Oligarchs. We'll come back to you where to get it, how to follow Seamus Bruner online as well. That's all coming up. Seamus, last week you made a great appearance at the White House. You were invited to a roundtable discussion at the White House by President Trump, and the roundtable discussion was about the Antifa terrorist organizations that are around the country. Talk about how did you, from the Government Accountability Institute, show up at an Antifa roundtable? What was the journey and towards that invite?
Yeah, thanks, Jimmy. So they wanted a guy who could follow the money. Because everybody there, all the journalists there, the brave journalists there, they're putting their lives on the line, going into places like Portland and Chicago, getting beat over the head with a pole. You had Andy Ngo there, who's gotten traumatic brain injuries from his reporting on Antifa. There was a young woman there, Katie Davenport. She had a black eye from literally getting beaten with a metal pole just the prior week. Julio Rosas, so many others. They're all on the ground reporting on this stuff. I was there as the guy who follows the money and says who is actually funding all of this chaos and civil unrest. And so it actually ties in quite nicely to the book Control Oligarchs. There's a whole chapter on George Soros and him funding the prosecutors and the bail projects and the riotous movements that are committing arson, property destruction, assaults on law enforcement, and all of the rest. And so the point is simple. If you're funding criminal activity, you shouldn't be getting tax breaks from the taxpayers. I mean, these are supposedly charities or nonprofit entities. And on top of that, they're getting all kinds of government grants. I mentioned at the White House that over $100 million in taxpayer grants from various agencies, both state and federal, have been giving money to this, what I called Riot Inc., which is an entire ecosystem of unrest.
Seamus Bruner is my guest. If you're listening only to the podcast version, we'll talk about his book here in just a moment. It's called Control Oligarchs. We'll get back to that. Seamus, I watched some of the clips from the Antifa roundtable that was there, and there was one speaker in particular that was he was an independent journalist, and I thought it was fantastic. He said, we're covering this, and he pointed, I guess, at the networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, and says, we're covering this because you won't be there. None of your cameras are there to witness it. Was that kind of an overarching theme? Was it a critique of the media? Did they focus more on the money? Was the NBC, ABC, CBS, were they actually finally paying attention, because they've been ignoring this whole story, even the physical violence, they've been ignoring it for a long time?
No, they're not just ignoring it, Jimmy. They're actively covering it up. I mean, the talking points went out sometime last week, and you have everybody from Jimmy Kimmel to CNN to all the rest saying Antifa doesn't exist. It's a figment of your imagination, which is why I said in my remarks that Riot Inc. is like any other corporation. It has many divisions, including a PR and communications division, and a lot of these people in the corporate press, mainstream press, are acting and running as a PR division. It's not because they're covering up the boots on the ground thugs who are doing the arsons and all of that. They're covering up for the funding mechanism. They can't be an organization. Antifa can't be an organization, even though it is organized, has members, receives funding, and everything that an organization you would think has, because they have the same funders. There's a whole chapter in Control Oligarchs on mainstream mind control, and how these people in the press, in the mainstream media, work to control your mind and basically gaslight you is the term.
Yeah. Seamus Bruner, for these Jimmy Kimmel types, the news media that are reading the talking points put up by the publicity machines, it is Antifa and the organizations that back it. Walk us through that pathway of money, because they're saying Antifa does not exist. It's decentralized. It's just a bunch of hooligans or what have you. Walk us through where it comes from. Are these grassroots thugs on the streets calling George Soros and sending money? Is this George Soros or someone like him sending money and hiring players on the street? Walk us through the chain of custody of the money that spawns up these riotous activities on the streets of America.
Yeah, well, do you want to start at the top or at the bottom?
You tell me which is most easy for Jimmy Kimmel to understand, because evidently they think it doesn't exist. It's this doesn't exist. So we can go top up or bottom up.
Let's start at the top. Let's start at the top. So you've got NGOs and large funding networks, donor advised funds. These are big so-called nonprofit charities. You've got Soros has 17 of them or more, all under the umbrella, the Open Society Institute.
Let's be honest, debt isn't just about numbers. It's emotional. If you're carrying over $20,000 in credit card debt,
There's another one called the Arabella Network, which has New Venture Fund, Windward Fund, Hopewell Fund. I could spend a whole segment just telling you the names of all of these dozens of funding mechanisms. But the money starts at the top. You've got George Soros. Bill Gates is a major, or was a major, financier of Arabella, the network. And the Tide Center, that's a hugely funded network. You've also got the Ford Foundation. And so you've got these big, gigantic charities. They're funded by people like Pritzker. You've actually got foreign funding coming in from one of the main foreigners funding this stuff is a Swiss billionaire named Hans-Jörg Wyss, who should not be participating in our political process. And then you've got other guys like Neville Roy Singham, who's an almost billionaire based in China, Marxist, who is pouring in tens of millions of dollars from the top. That money then funnels down from these major NGOs into other supposed charities, 501c3s. And there's a whole, I mentioned at the White House, dozens and dozens and dozens of them before you actually get to Antifa, which is the boots on the ground. And part of this ecosystem is the legal division. You've got the National Lawyers Guild, you've got the ACLU, and many other lawyer groups that are funded by this elite cash, that are there to only tell the side of the story of the poor innocent protester. They're there with cameras. The ACLU people are wearing yellow vests. And what they do is they gather exculpatory evidence, or evidence that the law enforcement are actually the aggressors. Obviously not the case, but the video might, if you were to watch a full video of an altercation, you would see some black mask, black clad Antifa thug shooting mortar shells and mortar fireworks, or, assaulting the police officers, throwing all kinds of bricks and stuff at them. And then you'll see the law enforcement reaction, which obviously I think everyone should agree is to arrest this person. And how they arrest that person who is aggressively resisting arrest, they've got to get physical with them. Well, the ACLU will just take that physical part and say, look at these officers. They're being, they're brutalizing these mostly peaceful protesters. And so that's the legal arm. Then you've got the bail projects funded by the Soros and Arabella network types, the bail funds get these guys back out onto the streets as soon as possible. Sometimes in less than 24 hours, you get somebody who just committed arson, violent property crimes out of jail. That's why it's really always popping off in Portland, Seattle, Chicago, is because these are blue cities and blue states where they believe that you should let violent criminals out of jail with no bail. But the bail projects get them out. Those are all well funded. Then you get to Antifa itself and the other decentralized organizations like the John Brown Gun Club, the chapter of Elm Fork, Texas. That one of its members actually allegedly, I guess, but shot an ICE officer, not the assassin, not the one who was up on the roof, but this was just one back in July. The John Brown Gun Club of Elm Fork also posted flyers on university campuses after Charlie Kirk's assassination, flyers that said, "Hey, fascist, catch," an allusion to the assassin's engraved bullet casings. And on those flyers, it said, "Join the John Brown Gun Club because we're the only organization that isn't afraid to celebrate when a Nazi is killed." So these are really, really sick individuals. I mean, nobody should be celebrating when anybody's killed. Anyway, so that's that one. You got the Socialist Rifle Association, another decentralized Antifa-like organization. How do they get their money? Well, they're not LLCs. They don't have EIN numbers. They don't get funding in the traditional method like all the other groups in this ecosystem, but they do have funding platforms. There's a couple of them I mentioned at the White House. One of them, called Open Collective, has gotten over $3 million, this platform. It's basically a GoFundMe for the radical left, and you can build your profile. So if you're Antifa of Seattle or of Chicago, you create a profile like you would a Facebook profile or any other profile on this Open Collective website. And this allows for anonymous donations to pour in. You can Venmo, Zelle, and so that's where the money trail stops for people like me. For law enforcement, they can actually peel back those layers, subpoena those records, and find out who is funding these. But it's basically a black box when you get to the funding platforms.
The name is Seamus Bruner. The name of the book is called Control Oligarchs. Seamus, real quick, we're going to run short on time here. You mentioned the name of one of the guys funding some of these up-level, upstream outfits, and you mentioned the name of Pritzker, who happens to be the governor of Illinois. J.B. Pritzker says his state is safe. There's no rioting. Everything's safe on the street. There's nothing to see here. Please don't send the National Guard to calm our city down. Did I hear that name right? That J.D. Pritzker has some funding going to these upstream organizations, but on the downstream level, he says there's nothing to see here and no problems. Is he actually a funder?
It's not J.B. Pritzker. The whole Pritzker family. I mean, you got Penny Pritzker, who was Obama's commerce secretary. The Pritzker family is a pretty large family in Chicago, billionaire family. So JB's just one of them, and they've got multiple foundations that they pour money into these networks. So I doubt J.B. Pritzker is managing the day-to-day of the foundation, but the Pritzker family, billionaire family, it's the Hyatt Hotel, fortune. They have been funding these radical activities for a very long time.
Yeah. As soon as I learned that, I stopped staying at Hyatt's. I used to have great international resorts, but no, don't go there anymore. You were the director of research for the Government Accountability Institute, also known as GAI. The name of your latest book is called Control Oligarchs: Exposing the Billionaire Class, Their Secret Deals, and the Globalist Plot to Dominate Your Life. Very important read. Congratulations, Seamus, on getting asked to the White House and the roundtable discussion on Antifa. And for the information, if folks want the Control Oligarchs, of course, it's on Amazon, anywhere good books are sold. If they want to follow you and or the Government Accountability Institute, where do they go?
Yeah, I'm at Seamus Bruner on all platforms. I'm mostly posting on Twitter, but that's SeamusBruner, also on Facebook, Instagram, and others. You can go to thedrilldown.com for all of our investigations, Peter Schweizer's interviews, etc. He's got a podcast there at thedrilldown.com, and he's Peter Schweizer on Twitter, at Peter Schweizer.
Seamus Bruner, it's a pleasure, friend. I appreciate you hopping in here. And again, next time you're at the White House, I don't know, do you take a souvenir? Do they give you like a box of matches or something, or a napkin that you take home as a souvenir?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I wanted to go to the White House gift shop, but I was in the business side of the White House, so I didn't see the gift shop anywhere. You got to go for a tour to go to that. No gift. I did take my name badge. They said we could take that little placard. So.
Seamus Bruner, pleasure, sir. Appreciate you being on the program.